Officer Jake Thompson had been looking forward to his first week on patrol for months. Fresh out of the academy, he wore his uniform with a mixture of pride and nervous energy. He had always dreamed of making a difference in his community, upholding the law, and protecting the people he served. But there was also the nagging anxiety that comes with being new on the job. The fear of making mistakes that could have serious consequences. Jake's first day on the streets of his hometown seemed calm at first. The sun shone brightly over the winding roads, and the usual morning traffic hummed along with predictable regularity. He patrolled cautiously, checking in with his senior officer, Sergeant Ramirez, who had promised to keep a watchful eye on him while he gained experience. "Remember," Jake Ramirez said as they drove through the quiet suburbs, "being a cop isn't about catching people for the sake of it. It's about understanding, patience, and keeping people safe. Mistakes happen, but it's how you handle them that defines you." Jake nodded earnestly, trying to absorb every word. He knew he wanted to be the kind of officer who made a difference, not one who became a cautionary tale. By mid-morning, a report came in of a disturbance at a popular biker meet spot on the outskirts of town. A local resident had called in about reckless riding and potential road hazards. Jake and Ramirez headed toward the scene. As they arrived, Jake noticed a group of bikers gathered around their motorcycles, laughing and talking. Most of them seemed calm and friendly, but the sheer number of bikes made Jake's stomach tighten with nerves. His training kicked in: observe, assess, act. But in his nervousness, Jake misread the situation, spotting a biker in a black leather jacket who fit the vague description from the call. He jumped out of the patrol car and demanded the man stop. "Sir, you're under arrest," Jake shouted, adrenaline surging through him. The biker, startled and confused, raised his hands. "Wait, what? For what?" But Jake was already cuffing him, ignoring the protests. The other bikers began murmuring among themselves, some curious, others wary. Jake's heart raced. He had never faced this kind of tense energy before. By the time Ramirez arrived to see what was happening, Jake had already made the arrest. Ramirez immediately saw the problem. "Jake, wait, that's not the guy," Ramirez exclaimed, rushing forward. "You've got the wrong person." Jake froze. His hands trembled slightly as he checked the man's ID. Sure enough, he had arrested an innocent biker. The man looked frustrated but not hostile, simply confused and hurt. "I'm so sorry," Jake stammered, releasing the cuffs. I didn't mean to." Ramirez placed a firm hand on Jake's shoulder. "It's a rookie mistake. Happens to the best of us. But we need to fix it fast." As they tried to de-escalate the situation, Jake noticed bikers from the surrounding area starting to gather. Their numbers grew quickly, -50, then 70. Then 100 riders circling the small parking area and spilling onto the road. Their engines roared in unison, creating a deafening symphony of power and frustration. Jake's stomach sank. He had expected pushback for the arrest, but he hadn't anticipated this kind of reaction. He realized he was facing a critical moment. He could escalate the tension, or he could try to calm the situation with honesty, humility, and respect. As the bikers stopped their engines and waited, Jake took a deep breath. "I made a mistake," he admitted loudly, hoping they could hear him over the noise. "I arrested the wrong person. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have acted so quickly without confirming the facts." Some bikers frowned, skeptical. Others nodded slightly, appreciating the candor. Jake's voice was steady now, even though his hands were still shaking. He had learned his first lesson on the job. Integrity and humility matter more than fear or pride. And so, the scene stood still, with 100 bikers surrounding. A rookie cop who had made a mistake, a moment of tension that could either spiral into chaos or evolve into a lesson about understanding and trust. The roar of engines had faded to a low, ominous rumble, like distant thunder on a summer afternoon. Jake Thompson stood frozen in the middle of the road, his hands still trembling from the adrenaline of the mistaken arrest. Around him, the bikers' motorcycles formed a wall of steel and leather, glinting under the sun, a living reminder of the power and numbers he had underestimated. Sergeant Ramirez stayed close, his presence a quiet anchor. "Jake," he said, "remember what I told you. Honesty first. Respect them, and you might get out of this without anyone getting hurt." Jake nodded, swallowing hard. He had learned that in policing, courage wasn't just about chasing down criminals or issuing commands, it was about facing uncomfortable truths, especially when you were the one in the wrong. The leader of the bikers, a tall man named Marcus, stepped forward, his black helmet under one arm. He surveyed Jake with sharp assessing eyes. "So," Marcus said, his voice calm but carrying authority, "you arrested my friend over nothing." Jake exhaled slowly. Yes. I made a mistake. I didn't check carefully, and I acted too quickly. I am very sorry. Marcus's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with skepticism. Around him, the bikers murmured among themselves. Many were tense, some angry, and a few were visibly amused at the rookie cop's discomfort. Marcus continued, "You understand why this looks bad, right? We're not a gang. We ride together. We respect the law, and we respect each other. But if someone's going to act like we're criminals without proof, it makes people defensive." Jake felt a knot in his stomach tighten. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about trust, perception, and the way the community saw law enforcement. He wanted to make things right, but he realized that words alone weren't enough. Actions mattered. "I know I can't undo the arrest," Jake said earnestly, "but I want to make it right. I want to learn from this. Please, let me explain and fix what I can." Marcus considered him for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, rookie talk. But no, this we value respect. If you want it back, you'll have to earn it." Jake took a deep breath, trying to gather his thoughts. He spoke honestly about his inexperience, his nervousness, and his desire to protect the community. He admitted that he had acted impulsively and recognized how it could have damaged the trust between the police and the biking community. He even apologized directly to the man he had wrongly arrested. The bikers listened. Some shifted impatiently, others crossed their arms, clearly still on edge, but slowly, the atmosphere began to change. Marcus's voice softened as he addressed his friends. "He's a rookie. Mistakes happen. What matters is whether he's willing to learn. That's a choice he's making right now." One by one, bikers began nodding, a few offering subtle gestures of acceptance. The man who had been arrested stepped forward and shook Jake's hand, not with resentment but with cautious understanding. "Just double-check next time," he said with a wry smile. "We all make mistakes." Jake felt a surge of relief, but he also recognized the lesson embedded in the chaos. Trust is fragile, and respect is earned through humility, honesty, and action. It wasn't enough to wear the uniform. He had to embody the principles it represented. Sergeant Ramirez finally stepped forward, clapping Jake on the shoulder. "See? You handled that well. Not perfectly, but well. And you've earned their respect, not because you're a cop, but because you're human." The bikers gradually began moving their motorcycles off the road, engines revving one last time before silence returned. The tension that had felt suffocating moments ago was lifting. Jake realized that understanding the perspective of others, even those who seemed intimidating, was a cornerstone of his job, a cornerstone of being a decent person. As the bikers rode away, Marcus called back to him, "Remember, rookie patience and listening go a long way. Don't forget it." Jake watched them disappear into the distance, a mix of awe and relief washing over him. He had faced fear, tension, and judgment and had survived it by showing respect, admitting his mistake, and listening. That evening, as Jake sat in the quiet of the patrol car, he reflected on the day's events. He realized that policing wasn't just about enforcing rules. It was about building bridges, understanding communities, and learning from every misstep. The first day had been harrowing. Yes, but it had also taught him something far more valuable than he had imagined. Courage isn't the absence of mistakes, but the willingness to face them with honesty, humility, and a genuine desire to do better. And for the first time in his career, Jake Thompson understood that being a good officer and a good person meant seeing people not as problems to fix, but as humans to understand. The sun had dipped low over the horizon, casting long shadows across the quiet streets as Officer Jake Thompson drove his patrol car back to the station. The day's events replayed in his mind like a looping film: the mistaken arrest, the gathering of 100 bikers. The tense standoff. Each moment was vivid and unforgettable. Jake felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief. He had survived the first major challenge of his career, but more importantly, he had learned something that no textbook could ever teach: the value of humility, honesty, and listening. Sergeant Ramirez rode alongside him, quietly reviewing the incident on their radios. "Not many rookies handle a situation like that without it turning ugly," Ramirez said after a pause. "You showed courage, but more than that, you showed respect. That's what counts." Jake nodded but remained contemplative. "I thought being a cop meant enforcing the law, following procedures, that sort of thing. I didn't realize how much it's about understanding people first." Ramirez smiled knowingly. "Exactly. Rules are important, but people are more important. You've got to balance both. Today, you made a mistake, but you corrected it the right way. That matters more than never making a mistake at all." At the station, Jake filed the report. carefully noting every detail. He described the arrest, the error, the biker's response, and the steps he took to de-escalate the situation. Writing it all down gave him clarity. He realized that accountability wasn't just about admitting wrongdoing, it was about documenting actions, taking responsibility, and ensuring similar mistakes wouldn't happen again. After submitting the report, Jake took a walk outside. The cool evening air cleared his mind. He reflected on the bikers themselves, their reactions, their patience, and ultimately, their willingness to forgive. Most people, he realized, weren't looking for conflict, they just wanted to be seen and respected. The bikers had acted as a unified community, not out of malice, but out of loyalty and principle. Jake thought about the broader lesson. The uniform didn't make him automatically right. An authority didn't grant automatic respect. Respect had to be earned, and it was fragile. One wrong action could erode trust, but one sincere effort to make amends could restore it. The next morning, Jake arrived at the station earlier than usual. He couldn't stop thinking about how he could improve, how he could prevent similar incidents in the future. He approached Ramirez. "I want to do more community outreach," he said. "I want to learn about the people I serve, not just enforce rules." Ramirez nodded approvingly. "That's the right mindset. Trust is built slowly. You've got the courage part down now. Work on understanding. Spend time with the communities you patrol. Listen more than you speak." Inspired, Jake began making small changes in his routine. He visited local businesses, rode along with neighborhood patrols, and even spoke with community leaders, including members of the biker group. He didn't just ask questions. He genuinely listened, learned their perspectives, and acknowledged their concerns. Over time, Jake noticed subtle changes in how people interacted with him. Smiles replaced wary glances, conversations replaced terse nods, and cooperation replaced tension. He realized that policing wasn't just about preventing crime, it was about nurturing trust, building bridges, and helping people feel seen and heard. One afternoon, he received an unexpected message from Marcus, the biker leader. "Good job yesterday, rookie. Keep listening." That simple message struck Jake deeply. It wasn't just praise, it was recognition of his effort, a sign that he was on the right path. That evening, as he walked through the quiet streets near the bikers' meet spot, Jake reflected on the journey so far. Mistakes were inevitable, he realized, but the way one responded to them defined character. Courage, humility, and empathy weren't just ideals, they were tools, guiding him toward being not only a better officer but a better human being. The events of the past 2 days had left Jake changed. He no longer feared making mistakes as much as he feared ignoring them. He no longer saw people as obstacles or potential lawbreakers first. He saw them as individuals with stories, motivations, and values. In the quiet of the evening, Jake made a silent promise to himself. He would strive to be patient, empathetic, and humble in every decision he made. He would uphold the law, yes, but he would do so with a heart that valued humanity above all. And as the sun finally disappeared beyond the horizon, Jake Thompson realized that the lesson he had learned from a single mistake, 100 bikers, and a tense standoff was one he would carry with him for life. Respect and understanding are the foundation of trust, and trust is the true currency of community. The morning sun illuminated the biker meet spot, casting long shadows of chrome and leather across the gravel. Marcus, the leader of the biker group, had called an early gathering not for a ride, but to talk. The events of the previous day were still fresh in everyone's minds, and there was much to discuss. Sitting in a semicircle around their bikes, the bikers exchanged looks and murmured quietly. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm yet authoritative. "Yesterday could have ended badly. One rookie, one mistake, and we could have had a serious incident on our hands. But it didn't. And that says a lot about people's intentions, if not their actions." One of the bikers, a woman named Lisa, raised her hand. "It's not just about intentions," she said. "It's about accountability." The guy admitted he was wrong and handled it with honesty. That's rare, especially in situations like that. Most cops would have doubled down, or worse, escalated things. Another biker, Tom, nodded. "True, but we also need to remember that perception matters. People in uniforms are supposed to protect us, but when mistakes happen, they feel like threats. That's why we had to make our presence known, not to escalate violence, but to remind him and anyone watching that our community looks out for each other." Marcus leaned back, folding his arms. "Exactly. Respect works both ways. You don't get it by demanding it to earn it, by showing that you understand where others are coming from." That's what Jake did yesterday. It wasn't perfect, but it was genuine. The bikers spent the next hour reflecting on the incident. Their discussion filled with a mix of relief, frustration, and insight. They realized that their initial reaction, assembling 100 riders and blocking the road, was bold. But it was born out of concern for their own community and each other. Their collective action had sent a message without turning violent, and that balance mattered. Meanwhile, word of the incident had spread through the town. Local residents shared mixed reactions. Some criticized Jake for acting hastily, while others praised him for admitting his mistake and handling the aftermath responsibly. Social media buzzed with debates over authority, responsibility, and community trust at the police station. Jake read through reports and community feedback. The mixed reactions were sobering. He realized that being a rookie meant facing scrutiny from all angles, but he also recognized that his approach yesterday, honest.com, and respectful, had prevented the situation from escalating further. That afternoon, Jake returned to the biker meet, this time on foot. He approached Marcus first. "I wanted to thank you," he said earnestly, "for giving me the chance to make it right, and for showing me the importance of listening and understanding." Marcus regarded him with a slight nod. "We all make mistakes, Jake. The important part is learning from them and showing it. That's how trust is built, one interaction at a time." Lisa chimed in. "It also shows that authority and power are meaningless without respect. Yesterday, you had both, but you chose to use them wisely. That's what made the difference." Jake listened intently, absorbing their perspectives. He realized that community policing wasn't about asserting dominance or enforcing rules blindly. It was about engaging with people, understanding their concerns, and finding common ground. To put his learning to the test, Marcus proposed a ride that afternoon, not for enforcement, but for camaraderie. "If you want to understand us, you need to ride with us," he said. "See our world, our rules, and how we respect each other out here." Jake agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. As he donned a helmet and climbed onto the back of a motorcycle, he reflected on the contrast between yesterday's tension and today's opportunity. The same bikers who had surrounded him now offered guidance and inclusion. The ride was an eye-opening experience. Jake saw how the bikers communicated silently through hand signals, respected road safety, and maintained discipline in numbers. He realized that their community operated on principles of loyalty, accountability, and mutual respect, values that weren't so different from what he aspired to uphold as a police officer. By the time they returned, Jake felt a profound sense of connection. He had glimpsed life from another perspective, and it deepened his understanding of the lessons he had begun to learn: humility, empathy, and the importance of trust. Marcus looked at him and said, "Remember this feeling. Respect and understanding aren't just words, they're actions, repeated over and over until they become part of who you are." Jake nodded, silently promising himself that this lesson would guide him not only in policing but in every human interaction he would face in the future. The bikers disbanded peacefully, leaving Jake standing alone on the gravel road. The roar of engines was gone, replaced by the quiet hum of reflection. He understood now that trust could be fragile, but when nurtured with honesty and respect, it could become stronger than any rule or law. As he walked back to his patrol car, Jake realized that yesterday's mistake had given him a gift: the chance to truly see people, not as suspects or problems, but as fellow human beings worthy of understanding and respect. The weeks following the mistaken arrest had been a whirlwind for Officer Jake Thompson. Word of the incident had spread beyond the biker community, and residents, business owners, and fellow officers all seemed to be watching his next moves closely. Jake had embraced his new approach to policing. He listened more, engaged with the community, and worked to build trust rather than just enforce rules. But trust, as he quickly learned, was fragile. One afternoon, a call came in that tested everything he had learned. A dispute had broken out at the local community center between two groups: a neighborhood youth group and a pair of new delivery drivers who had accidentally blocked access to the building. Tempers flared, voices rose, and the situation threatened to escalate. Jake and Sergeant Ramirez arrived quickly. The scene was chaotic. People shouted over one another, some gesturing wildly, others pacing nervously. Jake's heart sank. He recognized the tension all too well, the kind that could spiral into anger or worse, if not handled carefully. "Stay calm," Ramirez whispered as they stepped out of the patrol car. "Listen first. Don't assume. You've got this." Jake nodded. He took a deep breath and approached the group, hands visible and voice steady. "Everyone, please, let's take a moment and talk. I'm here to help, not to make anyone angry." The youth group leader, a tall boy named Malik, glared at him. Last time a cop tried to help, It ended with someone being arrested for no reason, he said sharply, eyes flicking toward Jake with obvious suspicion. Jake met his gaze evenly. I understand why you feel that way. I made a mistake once, and I've learned from it, but right now, I need to understand what's happening here, so we can solve this together. The delivery drivers looked unsure, caught between fear and frustration. One of them, a young woman named Sarah, spoke hesitantly. We didn't mean to block anything. It was just a misunderstanding. Jake listened carefully, asking questions and letting each person explain their side without interruption. He didn't rush to judgment. Instead, he acknowledged their frustrations, validated their feelings, and slowly began guiding the group toward calm. After several tense minutes, the energy shifted. People were quieter, more reflective. Malik's shoulders relaxed slightly, and Sarah offered a tentative smile. Jake suggested a compromise. The delivery drivers would move their trucks, and the youth group would adjust their activities to accommodate the delay. Both sides agreed. Sergeant Ramirez watched quietly, impressed. Good work, Jake. That's how trust is maintained, by listening, respecting, and finding solutions, not by using authority to dominate. Jake realized that this incident, smaller than the biker standoff but equally tense, reinforced a critical lesson. Authority alone doesn't solve problems. Empathy, understanding, and calm reasoning do. Policing wasn't just about enforcing laws, it was about building relationships and maintaining community cohesion. Later that evening, Jake returned to the station and reflected on the day's events. He realized that every encounter, whether with bikers, youth, or delivery drivers, required the same approach: patience, humility, and genuine care. Mistakes were inevitable, but they could become opportunities to build trust rather than destroy it. The lesson extended beyond policing. Jake began to see that the principles he was learning, honesty, accountability, and empathy, were universal. They applied to family, friendships, and everyday human interactions. Respect was not a currency to demand. It was a gift to earn, through consistent, thoughtful action. A few days later, Marcus sent a message to Jake. Saw how you handled that community center dispute. Proud of you? Keep it up. Jake smiled. Even after weeks, the biker's recognition still held weight. He realized that the relationships he was cultivating were not just professional, they were human connections built on trust, understanding, and mutual respect. By the end of the week, Jake had gained a newfound confidence. He wasn't infallible, he would still make mistakes, but he understood that mistakes didn't define him. How he responded did. Courage was not just about acting in danger, it was about admitting wrongs, learning, and applying those lessons to make better choices next time. Jake also recognized another vital truth: communities are not monoliths. Each group, bikers, youth workers, neighbors, had their own perspectives and values. Effective policing required understanding those nuances, seeing beyond surface-level conflicts, and responding with empathy rather than assumptions. As Jake prepared for another night patrol, he felt a quiet sense of purpose. The rookie who had once panicked at the sight of 100 bikers was no longer paralyzed by fear. He had learned to face challenges with honesty, humility, and patience, and in doing so, he had begun to embody the kind of officer and human being he had always aspired to become. The road ahead would not always be easy. Mistakes would happen, conflicts would arise, and trust would always need to be nurtured. But Jake now understood the secret to navigating it all. Listen first, act with empathy, and respect everyone as human beings. And in that understanding, he found a quiet strength far more powerful than any badge or uniform could provide. It was a crisp Saturday morning when the call came in. A traffic accident on the main road, leading into town, involving multiple vehicles and threatening to block the highway entirely. As Officer Jake Thompson rushed to the scene with Sergeant Ramirez, he realized this was no ordinary accident. Among the vehicles were 2 trucks from the delivery company he had helped the week before, a car carrying a family, and a motorcycle that had skidded dangerously close to the guardrail. The chaos was palpable. Drivers honked, pedestrians gathered nervously, and the injured motorcycle rider, a young man from the local biker community, was struggling to move. On top of that, rumors of the accident had already begun to circulate through social media, drawing a crowd of concerned bikers, residents, and onlookers. Jake took a deep breath. This was his momentous opportunity to put every lesson he had learned to the ultimate test. He approached the scene calmly, hands visible, speaking loudly enough to be heard over the cacophony of voices and engines. Everyone, please, step back and give space. Help is on the way, but we need to stay calm. The bikers began arriving almost immediately. Marcus and his group pulled up, engines rumbling, but there was no aggression in their stance, only readiness to assist. Marcus dismounted and approached Jake. "We're here to help. Tell us what you need." Jake felt a surge of relief. The bikers were not there to confront him. They were there to cooperate. He realized that the respect and trust he had built over the past weeks were now becoming a tangible force, capable of turning potential chaos into organized action. "Check the injured first," Jake instructed. "Keep the crowd calm and off the road. Help guide traffic. I'll coordinate emergency services." The bikers moved swiftly, following Jake's instructions without hesitation. Some attended to the young motorcyclist, carefully supporting him while waiting for the paramedics. Others helped direct vehicles to safety, keeping the accident scene contained. Residents who had gathered watched in awe, realizing that a previously tense dynamic between the bikers and the community had shifted into collaboration. Meanwhile, Jake coordinated with Ramirez and the arriving paramedics. He assigned roles, ensured that no one took unnecessary risks, and kept communication clear. He noticed that the bikers were organized, disciplined, and responsive, applying the same principles he had observed during the ride weeks before. As the situation stabilized, Jake realized something profound. The same principles he had applied in smaller conflicts: empathy, listening, respect, and patience were now saving lives in a high-stakes scenario. Mistakes were no longer just about paperwork or embarrassment. They could have serious consequences. But the relationships he had nurtured had become a shield, a network of cooperation that extended beyond formal authority. Marcus approached him again, this time with a nod of approval. "You handled this well, rookie. You stayed calm, listened, and coordinated. That's how trust works, earned through action, not words." Jake felt a deep sense of satisfaction, not just for managing the scene but for witnessing a community come together. The bikers, residents, and emergency personnel operated in harmony, each respecting the other's role, each trusting in the collective effort. Later, as the last ambulance pulled away and traffic began to flow again, Jake reflected on the day's events. He realized that authority alone could not achieve what empathy, respect, and cooperation had accomplished. A rookie cop who once panicked at the sight of 100 bikers had grown into an officer capable of leading, listening, and inspiring trust. Back at the station, Ramirez clapped Jake on the shoulder. "This is the day you prove yourself, not by following rules, but by building relationships. Today, you weren't just a cop. You were a bridge." Jake nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility and the satisfaction of growth. He understood now that policing wasn't about instilling fear or asserting control. It was about connecting with people, earning their respect, and guiding them through crises with empathy and humility. The bikers, who had stayed nearby until everything was resolved, finally revved their engines and rode off into the distance. Marcus looked back one last time and shouted, "Remember what you've learned. Respect and understanding aren't just tools, they're your shield." Jake watched them disappear, realizing that the lessons he had learned from the mistaken arrest, to listening, to handling small conflicts had all prepared him for this moment. Courage, he understood, was not about fearlessness. It was about facing challenges with honesty, patience, and empathy. That day, Jake Thompson proved to himself and to the community that trust, once earned, could transform fear into cooperation, chaos into order, and mistakes into opportunities for growth. He knew the road ahead would have more tests, more mistakes, and more challenges, but he also knew that the lessons he had learned would guide him through every twist and turn, and for the first time, Jake felt truly ready to meet whatever came next, not just as a cop, but as a person who understood the true meaning of respect, humility, and community. The evening after the accident, the town finally returned to its usual rhythm. Streets that had been tense and chaotic over the past weeks now carried a sense of quiet harmony. Jake Thompson sat in his patrol car, reflecting on the whirlwind of events that had defined the early weeks of his career. From the mistaken arrest of a biker to managing disputes at the community center, and finally, handling a potentially dangerous traffic accident, Jake had grown in ways he could never have anticipated. What had started as panic and inexperience had evolved into something more profound: awareness, empathy, and a genuine commitment to serving the community, not just enforcing the law. He remembered the biker's role vividly. The first time 100 engines roared down the road toward him, he had feared for his safety and questioned his judgment. But now, he saw the same bikers as partners, allies, and even teachers. Marcus, Lisa, Tom, and the others had shown him that respect and trust were earned through actions, not titles. They had tested him, yes, but they had also guided him toward understanding. Jake's thoughts then turned to the community members. he had met in the aftermath the youth group, the delivery drivers, and even concerned neighbors. Each encounter had reinforced the same lesson. People respond best when they feel heard, understood, and respected. Authority alone does not create cooperation. Empathy does. Patience transforms tension into dialogue, and humility allows mistakes to become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. At the station, Sergeant Ramirez approached him. "You've changed, Jake. I can see it. You're not just following rules, you're understanding them, and more importantly, understanding the people they affect. That's the difference between a good officer and a great one." Jake smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility and pride. "I've learned that mistakes aren't failures," he said quietly. "They're lessons, and if you face them honestly, they can teach more than any training manual ever could." Ramirez nodded. "Exactly, and the community notices. People trust you because you've shown them respect, not because you've demanded it. That's the key." Later that night, Jake took a quiet walk along the road where the bikers had once blocked him. The scent of asphalt and the faint hum of distant engines reminded him of how far he had come. He could almost hear Marcus' words echoing. Respect and understanding aren't just tools, they're your shield. Jake realized the truth in that statement. Every interaction, every decision, and every choice to listen rather than react had built a foundation of trust that was far more powerful than fear or authority. He had faced tests of courage, patience, and judgment, and had emerged stronger because of them. Weeks turned into months, and the bonds Jake had formed with the bikers and the community deepened. He joined community events, participated in safety workshops with the youth, and maintained open dialogue with local groups. The town began to see policing not as an imposition but as a partnership. Jake had become a bridge between authority and community, showing that understanding, humility, and genuine concern could transform relationships. One evening, as he completed his patrol and returned to the station, Jake received a simple message from Marcus. "Proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. You've earned it." Jake smiled, feeling the warmth of recognition that went beyond words. It wasn't just a compliment, it was a testament to trust, respect, and shared understanding. He knew that life would continue to present challenges, conflicts, and mistakes. But he also knew that the lessons he had learned through fear, reflection, and experience would guide him every step of the way. Looking out over the quiet streets, Jake made a silent vow to himself, to lead with empathy, to act with integrity, and to listen before judging, to remember that mistakes were opportunities for growth, and that every person he encountered deserved respect and understanding. In the end, the story of a rookie cop and 100 bikers wasn't just about a single mistake, it was about the journey of learning, the power of trust, and the strength of human connection. It was about how courage combined with humility, and authority combined with empathy, could create harmony where chaos once threatened. Jake Thompson knew now that the road ahead would be long, filled with both challenges and opportunities. But he also knew that with patience, respect, and understanding, he could navigate it not just as a cop, but as a person who truly made a difference. And as the stars began to dot the night sky above the quiet town, Jake felt a profound sense of peace. He had learned the ultimate lesson. True strength lies not in power or fear, but in respect, empathy, and the courage to do what is right even when it's hard.